My mother didn't even clear her throat before she rewrote my place in the family. "Harper, listen," she said, her voice bright and polished, the one she uses for neighbors and holiday cards. "Chloe really wants this Thanksgiving to be special. It's her first one with Ethan. We want everything to look cohesive." I had a chisel in one hand, sawdust on my jeans, and my phone wedged between my shoulder and ear. The shop was cold. The space heater in the corner was losing its fight with late November air. I stared at the half-sanded tabletop in front of me and felt something heavy settle in my chest. "Okay," I said slowly. "And what does that have to do with me?" There was a tiny pause, the kind where you can hear someone deciding how cruel they're willing to be. "Well," Mom said, exhaling through her nose, "you know how particular Chloe is about first impressions. Ethan is sophisticated. His family is too. She's building a certain image. And honey, you showing up in your usual would send mixed signals." Mixed signals. That was a new phrase for what I'd always been to them. The part of the family you keep off camera. "You're uninviting me," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I just wanted to hear it out loud. "Don't make it dramatic," she snapped, the sweetness slipping. "We're just asking you to sit this year out. It's only one Thanksgiving. Chloe has worked really hard on this. The last thing she needs is you making things uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. Right. Because nothing says holiday warmth like erasing one of your kids. I could picture the house. The long dining table with the good runner, Chloe's curated centerpieces, my father at the head of the table bragging about her latest campaign. They'd take photos in coordinated outfits and post them with captions about gratitude and family. And there'd be a neat, invisible space where I should have been. The sander hummed beside me, unplugged but still vibrating slightly, like it could feel my pulse racing. "I understand," I said. I heard her inhale, surprised it was that easy. "Good, I knew you'd be reasonable about this." Reasonable. That's what they called it every time they asked me to shrink so Chloe could shine. "I've got work to finish," I added. "Have a good holiday." I hung up before she could dress it up with a "love you" she didn't mean right now. For a long time, I just stood there, phone still in my hand, staring at the scarred concrete floor. The shop smelled like cedar and stain and cold metal. Normally, that grounded me. Today, it felt like my insides had been scraped clean. I wiped my hands on a rag, leaving smears of dust and oil, and walked the length of the workshop. The space used to be an old loading bay. Now it was mine. Tall windows, rough beams overhead, workbenches lined with clamps and planes, chalk marks on the floor where I'd measured for jobs and never bothered to erase them. Here I wasn't too much or too rough around the edges. I was just effective. Wood didn't flinch if I raised my voice. Nails didn't take it personally if I missed. A piece either fit or it didn't. I could fix what was broken, or I could start over. People online knew me as the girl who turned beat-up doors into headboards and rotting barn wood into dining tables. My posts got shared, sometimes even went mildly viral. Strangers in other states could recognize my work, while my own parents could look right past it. I picked up the orbital sander again, pressed it to the edge of the table, and tried to lose myself in the vibration. It didn't work. Every pass across the wood came with another memory, replacing a leaking pipe in my parents' basement, patching their roof during a storm, transferring money the month my dad forgot. The mortgage was due after the new SUV. I'd been their emergency contact, their unpaid contractor, their quiet safety net. But I had never been their pride. My mother didn't even clear her throat before she rewrote my place in the family. "Harper, listen," she said, her voice bright and polished, the one she uses for neighbors and holiday cards. "Chloe really wants this Thanksgiving to be special. It's her first one with Ethan. We want everything to look cohesive." I had a chisel in one hand, sawdust on my jeans, and my phone wedged between my shoulder and ear. The shop was cold. The space heater in the corner was losing its fight with late November air. I stared at the half-sanded tabletop in front of me and felt something heavy settle in my chest. "Okay," I said slowly. "And what does that have to do with me?" There was a tiny pause, the kind where you can hear someone deciding how cruel they're willing to be. "Well," Mom said, exhaling through her nose, "you know how particular Chloe is about first impressions. Ethan is sophisticated. His family is too. She's building a certain image. And honey, you showing up in your usual would send mixed signals. Mixed signals. That was a new phrase for what I'd always been to them. The part of the family you keep off camera. You're uninviting me, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I just wanted to hear it out loud. Don't make it dramatic, she snapped, the sweetness slipping. We're just asking you to sit this year out. It's only one Thanksgiving. Chloe has worked really hard on this. The last thing she needs is you making things uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. Right. Because nothing says holiday warmth like erasing one of your kids. I could picture the house. The long dining table with the good runner, Chloe's curated centerpieces, my father at the head of the table bragging about her latest campaign. They'd take photos in coordinated outfits and post them with captions about gratitude and family. And there'd be a neat, invisible space where I should have been. The sander hummed beside me, unplugged but still vibrating slightly, like it could feel my pulse racing. I understand, I said. I heard her inhale, surprised it was that easy. Good, I knew you'd be reasonable about this. Reasonable. That's what they called it every time they asked me to shrink so Chloe could shine. I've got work to finish, I added. Have a good holiday. I hung up before she could dress it up with a love you she didn't mean right now. For a long time, I just stood there, phone still in my hand, staring at the scarred concrete floor. The shop smelled like cedar and stain and cold metal. Normally, that grounded me. Today, it felt like my insides had been scraped clean. I wiped my hands on a rag, leaving smears of dust and oil, and walked the length of the workshop. The space used to be an old loading bay. Now it was mine. Tall windows, rough beams overhead. Workbenches lined with clamps and planes. Chalk marks on the floor where I'd measured for jobs and never bothered to erase them. Here I wasn't too much or too rough around the edges. I was just effective. Didn't flinch if I raised my voice. Nails didn't take it personally if I missed. A piece either fit or it didn't. I could fix what was broken, or I could start over. People online knew me as the girl who turned beat-up doors into headboards and rotting barn wood into dining tables. My posts got shared, sometimes even went mildly viral. Strangers in other states could recognize my work, while my own parents could look right past it. I picked up the orbital sander again, pressed it to the edge of the table, and tried to lose myself in the vibration. It didn't work. Every pass across the wood came with another memory, replacing a leaking pipe in my parents' basement, patching their roof during a storm, transferring money the month my dad forgot. The mortgage was due after the new SUV. I'd been their emergency contact, their unpaid contractor, their quiet safety net. But I had never been their pride. I woke up the next morning to someone pounding on my door hard enough to rattle the hinges. Not knocking, pounding. The kind of knocking people use when they think they have authority over your life. I pulled on a hoodie, shoved my hair into a messy knot, and opened the door. My entire family was on the landing. My mom stood front and center, wrapped in a perfectly cinched coat, lips pressed into a line so sharp it could slice drywall. My dad was behind her, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Chloe hovered to the side in a cream-colored outfit that looked more like a winter photo shoot than actual clothes. And beside her stood Ethan, tall, composed, hands shoved into his jacket pockets like he wasn't sure he should be there. Their breath fogged in the cold November air. All of them looked furious. "Why did you tell people you weren't invited?" Mom demanded. No greeting, no pause, just an accusation fired right between my eyes. I blinked. "I didn't tell anyone. Your grandmother called us," she snapped. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? She said you sounded upset. Clearly you told her something." Upset? Last night I hadn't allowed myself to feel anything long enough to sound upset. Dad stepped forward. "You twist things, Harper. You always do. You make us look like the bad guys." Chloe crossed her arms, shoulders tight. "I can't believe you're doing this to me. Thanksgiving is already stressful enough." I looked at her. "I didn't do anything." "You obviously said something," she insisted, eyes flicking over my hoodie and pajama pants with pure disdain. "People don't just magically know private family conversations. You made this into drama." Drama. Their greatest fear wasn't hurting me. It was bad optics. I leaned against the doorframe, letting the morning breeze hit my face. Grandma probably called because she noticed I wasn't invited. She notices things. Mom's voice sharpened. This isn't about that anymore. This is about your attitude. If you had just accepted what we asked. You uninvited me, I corrected. She ignored that completely, turning to Ethan as if needing an audience for her performance. We try so hard to keep peace in this family, but Harper, she always finds a way to complicate things. Ethan's brows drew together. He wasn't nodding. He wasn't agreeing. He was studying me like he was seeing something they were missing. Dad cleared his throat, shifting the attention back. Enough! We're here because we need you to stop creating problems. And because you're still responsible for things around the house. Responsible, that word again. A leash disguised as gratitude. I folded my arms. What things? The roof is leaking again, Dad said, like it was obvious. You need to fix it today. My stomach dropped. You came here angry because you want me to do repairs. And I need money, Chloe cut in, like we were switching topics at a brunch. For holiday decor at the firm. It has to look high-end, and I can't be behind budget. You can transfer it by this weekend, right? I stared at her. You're asking me for money after uninviting me from Thanksgiving. That's unrelated, she said, exasperated. Please don't make this bigger than it is. My event is important. Mom nodded sharply. Family helps family. Something inside me twisted, but not the way it used to. This time it wasn't pain. It was clarity, cold and bright. Before I could respond, Ethan finally spoke. Wait. He took a small step forward, studying me more intently now. Your last name is Lane, Harper Lane. My family stiffened, all eyes snapping toward him. He turned to me. Are you the Harper Lane who built that reclaimed oak dining set? The one that went viral last year? The woodworker everyone online wouldn't stop talking about? The air went still. My throat tightened, not because he recognized me, but because my own family looked genuinely confused. They had no idea what he was talking about. Chloe blinked hard. No, she just makes stuff in her garage. Ethan shook his head, impressed. No, she builds, she designs. I followed her work for months. Your craftsmanship is incredible. A flush crept up Chloe's neck. My mother's lips twitched. My father looked like he'd bitten into a lemon. For the first time in my life, someone in their pristine little world saw me, not as a tool, not as their fixer, but as someone with value. And they hated it. Mom recovered first. Well, that's lovely, but it doesn't change what we're discussing. She still has responsibilities. Chloe crossed her arms again. We already told everyone she'd handle the roof and help me with the daycare budget. Don't make us look foolish, Harper. There it was, the real truth. Not love, not care, just image management. I exhaled slowly. My voice came out calm, almost quiet. No, Mom frowned. No what? No, I'm not fixing the roof, and I'm not giving Chloe money. I met their stunned silence with steady eyes. I'm not your safety net anymore. The cold wind whipped through the doorway, carrying their shock with it. The look on their faces told me one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. For a full 5 seconds, no one said anything. The cold morning air filled the space where their expectations had lived. My mother's expression crumpled first, but not in sadness, in outrage. Harper, she said, voice trembling with indignation, you don't get to talk to us like that. We are your parents. I nodded slowly. Exactly. Parents, not employers, not creditors. Not clients calling in emergency favors at 7 a.m. Dad stepped forward, his face tightening. After everything we've done for you. I cut him off before he could finish the script he'd rehearsed my whole life. You mean feeding me as a kid? That was your job. That wasn't a down payment on my adulthood. Chloe let out an incredulous laugh. Wow, you're unbelievable. You always help and now suddenly you don't. She shook her head dramatically. This is you being petty because of Thanksgiving. No, I said. This is me realizing I'm only useful to you when something breaks. Mom jabbed a finger toward the door behind me. We raised you. You owe this family respect. Respect goes both ways, I replied. And you don't get lifelong access to my time just because you bought me school lunches in the 4th grade. Chloe shot a glare at Ethan, as if begging him to step in and fix this narrative. Say something, she hissed. To her shock and mine, he did, but he didn't take her side. Harper's not wrong, Ethan said quietly. Chloe's face flushed from pink to red. I cannot believe you just said that. Why? He asked. She's been calm. You all rushed over here to blame her for something she didn't do, and then demanded free labor and money. Mom gasped like he'd slapped her. Excuse me, this is a private family matter. Ethan didn't blink. Then maybe treat her like family, not a service provider. Dad squared his shoulders. Listen, son. I'm not your son, Ethan corrected sharply. The temperature of the entire landing shifted. Their perfect Thanksgiving tableau had a crack in it, and Ethan's words shoved it wider. Chloe turned to me, eyes burning. You're ruining everything. You always ruin everything. Ethan and I had plans. My event is coming up. This is supposed to be a good month for us. I stared at her, suddenly exhausted. You uninvited me from Thanksgiving because having me in the photos would make you look bad. That is not what happened, she yelled. That is exactly what happened, I replied. Your mother said it word for word. Mom stiffened. Don't twist my words. Ethan looked at her slowly. Did you really say that? She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Her silence was the loudest truth she'd ever spoken. That's when something inside me finally settled. It wasn't anger anymore, it was release. A weight I'd been dragging for years just slid off. I stepped outside fully, letting the door swing behind me. The air was icy, but I felt strangely warm. I need you all to listen carefully, I said. I am done fixing your house. I'm done sending money. I'm done rearranging my life every time you forget something or break something or overspend on something. Dad scoffed. You can't just say that. I just did. He took a step toward me. When your mother and sister are stressed, you step up. That's what you do. That's what you've always done. Not anymore, I repeated. The words landed with the weight of a hammer striking a nail. Chloe threw her hands up. This is so dramatic. You're literally ruining the holiday. You ruined it, I said. You erased me from Thanksgiving because I didn't fit the image you wanted to present. You didn't even hesitate. Mom's voice rose to a shaky pitch. We were trying to help Chloe. Her reputation matters. And so does my dignity. Something flickered across Ethan's face, something like respect. Dad clenched his jaw. You'll regret this. I might regret a lot of things, I said, but I won't regret setting boundaries. Mom's eyes filled with angry tears. Chloe looked like she wanted to scratch the railing. Dad's face reddened to a dangerous shade. Their perfect holiday narrative was slipping out of their control, and they didn't have a script for that. Ethan stepped closer to me than to Chloe, speaking low but firm. Good for you, Chloe rounded on him. Stop taking her side. He didn't answer her. He didn't need to. My mother finally snapped. We are done here. Get your attitude sorted out, Harper. We will talk again after you've calmed down. She turned sharply, expecting the others to follow. Dad did. Chloe hesitated, staring at Ethan, waiting for him to choose. He didn't move. He watched her walk away, and in the stillness that followed, the truth hit me hard. This wasn't just about Thanksgiving. This was the moment my family realized they no longer owned a single piece of me. They left in a flurry of self-righteous anger, their footsteps crunching through the frost. But Ethan stayed where he was, hands back in his pockets, eyes thoughtful as he looked at me. You okay? He asked softly. Not yet. But for the first time, I could see the path toward okay. And I had no idea how badly this small shift was about to unravel their perfect holiday plans. The days after that confrontation felt strangely quiet, not peaceful, not yet, but clear. My phone didn't ring. No texts. No guilt-tripping voicemails. My parents must have assumed I'd come to my senses and apologize the way I always had. I didn't. Instead, I threw myself into work. December crept in with frost-covered mornings and long evenings where the shop felt warmer than my old house ever had. I spent the first week prepping custom orders, mentoring June and Milo on a bench build, and helping Rachel fix the loose cabinet hinges in her apartment. People drifted in and out of my workshop, bringing coffee, cookies, or just company. No curated poses. No pressure to look perfect. The kind of family you build by accident, not the kind you perform for Instagram. Christmas Eve arrived faster than I expected. By sunset, my workshop glowed with string lights and mismatched lanterns. The long tables were pushed together, covered in tablecloths that didn't match but somehow worked. Rachel brought a pot of chili. Mr. Whittaker brought homemade bread that crumbled if you so much as exhaled on it. June and Milo brought nothing but energy and loud jokes, and that was more than enough. We weren't trying to impress anyone. We were just together. For the first time in my life, it felt like Christmas meant something other than strained smiles and carefully staged photos. At one point, I stepped aside and watched it all, the laughter, the warmth, the clatter of dishes, and it hit me. This is what I'd been begging my family for my whole life, and they never had it to give. I was reaching for a mug of cider when the metal roll-up door shook violently. It wasn't wind. It wasn't an accident. It was rage. Everyone went silent. Before I could move, the door flew up with a metallic crash and a blast of icy air. My family stormed inside. Mom first, face red, eyes bright with fury. Dad right behind her, jaw clenched, posture rigid. And Chloe looked like she'd been crying for hours. She pointed at me as if accusing me of a crime. "You humiliated us," her voice echoed off the rafters. All eyes turned to them, my chosen family frozen mid-bite, mid-laugh. The warmth drained from the room, replaced by cold tension. Mom stepped forward. "Do you know what your relatives have been saying? They think we banished you. They think we're terrible parents." Dad jabbed a finger at me. "You always twist the story. You made us look like monsters." I took a slow breath. I didn't say anything to anyone. "So it's some coincidence," Mom snapped, "that everyone knows you didn't come to Thanksgiving." Rachel stood quietly near the table, watching the scene unfold. Mr. Whittaker's hand tightened around his cane. June and Milo exchanged wide-eyed looks. Chloe suddenly shoved past our parents, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Ethan left," she choked out. "He walked out on Christmas Eve. He said he needed space from me, from us." Her voice cracked. "And it's because of you." The room buzzed with confused murmurs. I blinked slowly. "I didn't do anything." "You took him from me," she screamed. "No," a voice said from the entrance. Everyone turned as Ethan stepped into view, snow dusting his hair and coat. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shaken. He was resolved. Chloe gasped. "Why are you here?" "Because," Ethan said, eyes sweeping across the workshop, "I wanted to spend Christmas somewhere real." Mom stiffened. "Real?" "Yes," he said. "Real, genuine, not curated, not staged." He turned to Chloe. "Your sister built this. These people actually care about her." Dad shoved his hands in his coat pockets, furious. "We're her family." Ethan didn't back down. "Family doesn't treat her like a utility." The words landed like a hammer blow. Mom sputtered. "How dare you?" "I'm not here to fight," Ethan said. "I'm here because I finally see the truth." Silence followed, heavy, weighted, undeniable. Then my mother's voice rose again, trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. "Harper, tell him he's wrong. Tell him you didn't pay our bills, or fix our house, or bail us out every time we needed something." The room froze. I walked to my workbench and pulled open the bottom drawer, the one I never touched in front of anyone. Inside was a thick envelope filled with every receipt, invoice, and note I'd kept over the years. Not as revenge, not for leverage, just because I got tired of being told my support was exaggerated. I handed it to Dad. He snatched it triumphantly until he unfolded the first paper. Then the second. Then the third. His expression changed. Confusion, denial. Then something else, realization. Mom went pale. Chloe's mouth trembled. "You kept track," Mom whispered. "No," I said quietly. "I kept boundaries. You just never noticed them until now." The room felt painfully still. "You're unbelievable," Dad said, voice shaking. "We fed you, we raised you. You owe us respect." I shook my head. "I owe you honesty, and here it is, I'm done being your backup plan." Chloe's voice rose into a wail. "You ruined everything." Ethan stepped between her and me. "Stop blaming her for your behavior." Mom lunged forward as if she could tear the papers from Dad's hand. "No one will believe this." I gestured to the room. "They already do." Every face looked at her with quiet, unwavering truth. My father's voice cracked. "You'll regret this." For the first time in my life, I believed my own answer. "No," I said. "I regret not doing it sooner." Their world, the one built on reputation, control, and curated perfection, splintered right in front of them. And they had no one left to perform for. For a long moment, no one moved. My parents stood frozen in the center of my workshop. illuminated by soft Christmas lights, surrounded by people who had grown to love me, and they looked impossibly small, like children caught misbehaving, except their arrogance wouldn't let them admit it. Chloe was shaking, mascara streaking down her face, anger twisting every feature. Mom's hands were trembling so hard the papers rustled like dry leaves in a storm. Dad was the one who broke first. "We are leaving," he said, but it didn't sound like a decision, more like a last attempt to salvage dignity. He tried to hand the envelope back to me, but I didn't move. I just stared at it. At him, at all three of them. "Keep it," I said. "You'll need it the next time you rewrite history." A ripple went through the room, not applause, not gasps, just a quiet acknowledgement that the truth had finally been spoken aloud. Mom's jaw clenched. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said softly. "I'm freeing myself." The words hit her like a slap. Chloe stepped toward Ethan, voice breaking. "Please, come home. We can talk, okay? This isn't who we are." "This is all just," he shook his head gently. "Chloe, it is who you are. I just didn't want to see it." Tears poured down her face. "You're choosing her over me, over us." "I'm choosing honesty," he said. I saw it the exact moment Chloe's heart cracked. But instead of reflecting, she turned her pain outward, toward me, like she always did. "You took him," she hissed. "You took Thanksgiving, now Christmas, and now HIM. I didn't raise my voice. "If you think someone can be taken, maybe you never really had them." Her breath stuttered. For a second I wondered if she'd launch herself at me. But instead she crumpled. A full-body collapse of pride, fury, and grief. Dad grabbed her arm roughly. "Enough, we're leaving." Mom turned toward the door, but not before aiming one last blade at me. "You'll be alone when this falls apart." I didn't flinch. "I'm not alone now." Her eyes swept the room, at Rachel comforting her son, at June and Milo whispering angrily under their breath, at Mr. Whittaker gripping his cane like a weapon. She knew the truth. I had built something she could never control, and she hated that more than anything. They turned toward the exit. Snow blew in as the door lifted. The cold wind wrapped around them, swallowing their silhouettes as they stepped outside. Their steps crunched through the icy gravel, fading into the swirling dark. And then they were gone. The metal door clattered shut behind them. Silence settled in the workshop, thick, heavy, emotional. For the first time since I was a kid, I didn't feel like I had to hold myself together. I didn't have to brace for impact. I didn't have to pretend. Ethan turned toward me first. His expression held something complicated. Admiration, maybe. Relief. Sadness for what he'd just witnessed. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. "I think I will be," he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry you've lived with this for so long." Something inside me softened, but only for a moment. This wasn't the time for gratitude. It was the time to reclaim myself. "Thank you for saying something," I said. "You didn't have to." "I did," he replied. "Some things deserve to be said." Chloe's sobs still echoed faintly in my mind, not because they hurt me, but because I finally understood they weren't my responsibility to fix. Not anymore. People slowly returned to their seats, unsure if the evening was truly safe again. Mr. Whittaker was the first to move. He tapped his cane on the floor. "Well," he muttered, "someone pass me the bread before it gets cold." A few chuckles slipped through the tension. Then Rachel brought me a bowl of soup. June and Milo elbowed each other and stole a roll. Noah tugged at my sleeve, holding out a crayon drawing of a Christmas tree. Life seeped back into the room, gentle, steady, warm. The kind of warmth I'd never experienced in that big, spotless house I grew up in. Ethan stayed a little longer, helped Mr. Whittaker out to his car, carried leftovers to Rachel's trunk, tidied up stray napkins with quiet hands and a thoughtful expression. As he got ready to leave, he paused in front of me. Snowflakes clung to the shoulders of his coat. "You built something good here, Harper," he said. "Don't let anyone take it from you." I swallowed. "I don't plan to." He smiled, small but sincere. "Merry Christmas." Then he walked out into the snow. After everyone left, I locked up the workshop and stood alone beneath the lights, letting the silence wrap itself around me. For the first time, I wasn't carrying two families on my back. The one I came from and the one I built. I was just me, and that was enough. 1 year later, on a quiet December night, I stood outside my shop again. Snow drifted across the parking lot. Inside, the lights glowed warm. Voices drifted out, laughter, conversation, the hum of the life I created. My parents never came back. Chloe never apologized. Ethan visited sometimes, not romantically, just respectfully, like someone who understands the shape of your scars. And me, I didn't chase a seat at a table that never wanted me. I built my own. And somehow, it filled itself. If anyone listening has ever walked away to save themselves, know this. It isn't selfish. It's survival, it's freedom, and it's the beginning of everything.